So I think the first one that I wanted to pick up on, and it was the bit that I found most inspiring from your session this morning, was you made a lot of play on the difference between the solidity inside and then the kind of the personality and the identity that we portray to the outside world. And I feel that some of the biggest challenges we face as marketers and in brands is that we spend a huge amount of time thinking about the way we portray ourselves to the outside world, but we don't really get ourselves right inside first. From the experience that you've had dealing with individuals about that, what advice would you give to business people and to brands about how they can start the process of getting right inside first?
So the fundamental flaw in this entire process is, without enhancing yourself, you're trying to enhance your activity. It's like… You're from UK, eh?
Scotland, yes.
Scotland. You take a junk Vauxhall and try to drive it on the F1 track. It's bound to fall apart. Instead of dreaming of winning an F1 race, if you build a machine which is capable of doing whatever your intelligence allows to build, whatever kind, if you build one, then it'll do whatever it does. Whether it wins or not is subject to what others have done. Whether you win a race or not simply depends on how good or bad other people are. But when we do something, are we functioning from the highest possibility within us, or from the lowest possibility, or somewhere in between is a big question. And the biggest question in human life is, you do not know what is your highest possibility. For every other creature on this planet, nature has drawn two lines. Within that, they live and go. For the human being, there's only bottom line, there's no top line. So it doesn't matter what you become, you still don't know whether you've hit the peak or not. Only those people who are only interested in winning races with other crippled people, they have hit the peak.
Okay.
But any genuine human being who is exploring his own nature, you never know if you've hit your peak because there is still room, no matter what you have done. So, enhancing the machine, this human mechanism, is most important. Whether you win the race or not, whether you did this or not is not important. If you have this enhanced, everything that you do will be enhanced. People around you think you're superhuman simply because everything that you do seems to be of a different nature, of a different quality that they can't imagine. Not because you're intending to do things better than other people, simply because you have spent time to enhance this one. So, this is a fundamental flaw in the attitude with which people are entering the world. Instead of building a great mechanism which will… whatever it does will be of a great possibility, people are trying to do great things, which is going to kill them. That's why successful people are miserable. Somehow they've managed to do something and it's taking such a big toll on them.
How might we unwind some of that? So what I find great about the way that you express all of this is you have a great confidence, which clearly comes through from the way that…
No confidence.
Maybe I should re-express that then. You clearly talk from the heart. This is somebody who's…
So that's the thing. The only quality is clarity. People think confidence is a substitute for clarity. That's the biggest disaster.
Okay.
The great disaster on the planet is people who have no clarity have confidence.
Nice. That maps beautifully back to a lot of the brands, is that where they don't have clarity, they represent confidence in the activities that they do, but I think that goes back…
So that's why all the loud advertising, because there is no clarity but there is confidence. See, you are who you are only because of whatever you might have perceived. What you have not perceived is not you, isn't it?
I like that.
You see, whether you're consciously aware of this or not, how people experience you right now is, whatever you have perceived, in whichever way it's finding expression, that is what people's experience of you are. And that is what your experience of yourself is. Whatever you have perceived, that's all. Instead of enhancing perception, we are trying to enhance again expression. You're you're in the social media stuff. Everybody wants to express anything and everything, no matter whether they know something or don't know something, everybody wants to express. This is the age of expression without perception. It's a disaster. People are becoming who they are because of what they express, not because of what they have perceived. If you are who you are, because essentially in life, the nature of life is such, only what you have perceived is you. But right now, because you pick bits and pieces all over the world, you can express all kinds of things that you don't know. See, today a 12-year-old child looks bored. Never before it was so, it's only in this generation, because he's seen the cosmos through his phone screen. He knows everything. There's nothing he does not know.
The facts are all there, but maybe the emotions…
They're not facts. They are not facts. You call them facts, all right, you can call them facts if you want to, but I'm saying, me knowing how many million light years away is a particular galaxy which we call as Z127 is not knowledge.
No.
Whether it's 10 million light years or 100 million light years makes no difference, because in my perception there is no way to experience a light year, first of all. It's all conceptual, it is not experiential. Unless your perception is experiential, it doesn't enhance you, it is just accumulation. Like people accumulate wealth, money, useless things all over, trinkets, people are accumulating knowledge or information, trinkets which will make them look smart in a tea party. Only in comparison to somebody else who does not know where galaxy Z127 is.
So, based on that concept of…
It's not a concept.
So, okay. The idea of the experience versus the perception, I wanna look a little bit more about that. And what you were talking about, the accumulation of…
Information.
Which is a big problem for our industry. We are obsessing about things like big data, we're obsessing about all the gadgets that we collect, and we're missing that experience bit that you talk about. So we've amassed however many millions of bytes of data that the gentleman just now on stage was just talking about, but we're not using them to understand. How would you advise people…
When you bite so much, you'll bloat
This is true.
and get unhealthy.
Obesity is not a good thing in any context. How do we translate that desire to learn into the action that makes the learning valuable? Where do we help people move along that journey?
See, in this question there's a fundamental flaw.
Okay.
In the sense, because you belong to a generation which is goal-oriented.
True.
Goal-oriented means you are interested in the mango, the sweetness of the mango, but you are not interested in the tree. Because slowly you're living in a generation where mango comes from a supermarket, not from a tree. It may so happen in a laboratory they will make a mango, all right? But if you want mangoes in your garden, you don't have to think mangoes, you don't have to meditate upon mangoes. You have to think soil, filth, manure, water, sunlight. No mangoes in your mind. You have only manure, soil, water, sunlight in your mind. Mangoes will happen. Or in other words, you are too interested in the consequence, but not in the process which causes the consequence. This is goal-orientedness. In yoga we say, If you have one eye on the goal, you have only one eye to find your way, it's inefficient. If you use both your eyes to find your way, according to your capability, you will go as far as you can go. That means you're not concerned how far somebody is going. You want to go as far as you can go. That's what you're interested in. But right now, this goal-orientedness means you're only interested in going one step further than your neighbor. Or in other words, the only joy that you have in your life is somebody is doing worse than you. I think that's a sick mind.
I agree with you, absolutely. I'm gonna keep pressing you on that question though. How do we help people see past that mentality which is holding us back? What can we suggest to our peers in marketing to change them away from this goal?
From digital to divine.
Where do we find the divine? Because I love the fact that you're talking about we cannot be goal-oriented, but at the same time, many businesses face the imposition of goals from others who determine our ability to survive, which I kind of know you're going to say is flawed, and I would agree with it, but nonetheless, we need to help people to see the alternative to what is flawed.
See, tell me one thing. You can look at Mr. Bolt, you know? You could look at Mr. Bolt for inspiration, all right? But if you try to run like him, you'll break your legs, that's all that'll happen. For inspiration, you can look at Mr. Bolt, perfectly fine. You can look at Mr. Sachin Tendulkar for inspiration. You try to go and face a ball which is coming at 160 kilometers per hour, a hard ball, you'll kill yourself, really. Most people know cricket only on television, so they think it's a nice game. Go and stand there, it's the most violent game. Projectiles are coming at you at tremendous speed, giving you a fraction of a second to react and hit the ball. Because they see it only on television, they think it's a nice, beautiful game. No, it's… among all the games that are popular today in the world, it is the most dangerous game. Nowhere else any hard ball is coming at you at that speed. Really, most of the time coming at your head.
There's a certain degree of animosity in some of the way that this is being…
No, I'm saying, because somebody mastered that, he was talking to you about the level of dedication right from his childhood, how he's involved. So, Tendulkar is Tendulkar, all right? You can use him as an inspiration, but you don't try to do what he is doing today afternoon because you'll be dead. Yes. So, you can use a high level of whatever somebody has set a goal as an inspiration. Somebody is running 100 meters in 8 seconds, you can use it as an inspiration, don't try to do it. It's like a Vauxhall trying to be a Ferrari.
It's that benchmarking that we obsess so much about marketers, that you want to be like them and you think that replicating everything that they do becomes a dangerous…
That's the biggest mistake. Because who knows, maybe you can hit the ball better than Tendulkar. Right now, why do you want to limit yourself to Tendulkar standards? There was a time nobody believed that you will reach 100 in a cricket game only after 35 to 40 overs. I remember this change that happened. First time, Sanath Jayasuriya hit the ball within the first 20 overs, 100. Now people are hitting it within 8, 9 overs, okay? Because they're not thinking about what somebody did. You hit the ball according to your capability, who knows, maybe you'll hit it better than Tendulkar, we don't know. The possibility is there. In reality, there may be a distance, that's different, but the possibility is there. So if you become goal-oriented, your goals are always determined by other people's capabilities. You will never do what you could have done. Maybe you can't hit a ball, maybe you could do something else, way better than anybody else. But you will never do that because you go on trying to hit the ball that you can't hit.
So this concept of the memoryless intelligence that you talked about, how can a marketer access that? Because we are probably some of the most insecure people in the world.
Market people cannot access it.
You can quote that one.
Human beings can.
Okay.
Markets cannot. Few times when I was at the Economic Forum, the World Economic Forum, people keep on referring to India as emerging market. I say, don't refer to it as market, we are not a marketplace. Once you think somebody is market, how are you going to approach them? You're going to put some nonsense that you have created, try to convince them they must drink this or eat this or buy this or use it or whatever. If I saw you as a human being and I'm concerned about you and your well-being, I would see what you need. If I do what you need, if I manufacture what you need, I don't have to market it, market man will go out. Manufacturing is all that's needed. But right now you're doing something that people don't need and you have to convince them that they need it. It's very clear, even a kindergarten child knows that this body doesn't need carbon dioxide, it needs oxygen. But somebody is putting carbon dioxide in the bottle and calling it the real thing. So they need marketing. Marketing department is bigger than the manufacturing because you're trying to convince somebody carbon dioxide is good for you. Well, you may convince a generation. A whole generation was convinced smoking tobacco is the best thing you could do. If you're a man, you must smoke, otherwise you're not a man. Yes or no? A whole generation believed if I don't smoke and blow the smoke in your face, I'm not man enough. But now suddenly it's become no good. So this is what the marketing men will do. They're trying to sell something that people may not need. Instead of looking at someone as market, if you look at them in human beings with some concern, you would know what they need. If you manufacture that, you don't have to market it, they will stand in a queue.
So I'm going to use somebody else's words in response to that, because this is something that I have hopefully believed for a long time as well. A friend of mine said that as marketers, we've got to stop trying to make people want things, and we've got to try and make the things that people want. It's fundamentally obvious to me, and yet, as you…
I'm saying largely marketmen will get eliminated. Manufacturing and people, in between little marketing. Both you and me are manufacturing something that he wants. But now, I'm trying to tell him what I'm manufacturing is really what you want, not what this guy is doing. Actually, that's the truth.
You talked a lot about all the gadgets that we have access to, all this amazing technology, and yet we fail to use the best of the gadgets that we have, which is our own brain.
Not that we are not using it, we are using it in a very skewed way.
Right. We're not able to listen correctly, we're not able to understand what it is that those people want, even though we have access to all these amazing things. I use a lot of social media, which in theory allows me to listen to the conversations of millions of people at any given time. And yet I find it very difficult to perceive.
Gossip gone global.
There's an awful lot of gossip on this. We talked a lot yesterday about the food photos. It's this fascinating thing that 200 million people have taken photos of food and uploaded them to Instagram. And the question is, why are we doing this? But that's sort of…
Because food looks prettier than the people who eat them.
Slightly disconcerting concept again. Absolutely true.
No, if people are taking pictures of the food they eat and putting it on, obviously they think it looks prettier than them.
But we have access to the insights that shares about what they believe is pretty and what they enjoy in life, but we're not using it, so…
See, all this is happening, I mean, leave the jokes apart, this is because people are trying… because now they've found a means, a technological means to find expression. Expression more than perception means marketing department is bigger than manufacturing.
Okay.
That's all that's happening.
What would then the perception bit look like?
See, what would perception look like? See, there are only 5 instruments of perception right now for you: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. So what you perceive through these five senses, a certain process, an amalgamated process of these five senses. Right now you're sitting here, you're seeing, you're hearing, I hope you're not smelling anything but actually it's all happening. Smelling, sensations, heat, cold, all these things are happening, you may not be conscious of it unless it becomes acute.
Right.
Otherwise, if you walk from there to there are 25 different kind of smells, minimum I'm saying. But most of the time you're not conscious of it unless something becomes very pleasant or very unpleasant. So every moment, all the five senses are recording phenomenal amount of information. Now the processing of this information is happening from a certain prejudice. When I say prejudice, the identity causes prejudice. If you're functioning from an identity, whatever, you're English, I'm Indian, somebody's man, somebody's woman, this is all prejudice. People think they're broad-minded, well, it's a broad prejudice. Yes, the moment you're identified with something, there is a certain prejudice attached to it, you can't help it. That's the way the intellect works, because intellect cannot function without identity. If you take away identity, your thoughts will become still. That's all it is. That's what is called meditation. If you can sit here without being identified with the physiological or psychological or the worldly process that's going on, you will become meditative. Because you're not identified with anything, your intellect becomes quiet. As long as you're identified, do what you want, you cannot stop it. It's like you eaten bad food, then you want to control the gas, it won't work it'll anyway happen. So now you're identified with something that you're not. See, you belonging to a certain nation, you belonging to this or that is something that we made up, all right? What we make up, we must manage. But what we made up has gone out of control. You identify to such a point, you really think it is, you're willing to live and die for it. So because of that identity, what you call as my mind or intellect has become prejudiced in a certain way. From that prejudice is working, it's okay for survival process, this prejudice is good for survival process. But if you're wanting to look for clarity, you want to see things the way they are, you want to perceive life just the way it is, not the way… not as an Englishman, not as an Indian, not as a man, not as a woman, but you want to experience life just the way it is, then you must have the ability to distance yourself from identity and just look at it. It's not that you're not at all doing it, every human being is becoming released from their identity at some point of involvement with something, okay? But it's not a conscious process, it's not by choice. Once in a way, it's happening, those moments they produce something significant, rest of the time they're just a mess. I'm talking about, if you have a machine, every time you touch it, it must fire, all right? Intermittently it fires once in a way, that's not a great machine. The same goes for the human being. If you have a spark of genius, you must be able to make it happen spark all the time, 24 hours. Otherwise, it fires once in a way, accidentally, then you become astrological. You're looking for the right position of the planets for you to fire. That's inefficiency. That inefficiency is coming because perception is blocked.
Is there a way to manage that?
Oh yes, there's an entire science. As there is a science and technology to create external situations the way we want it, there is a whole science and technology to create inner situation the way you want it. This is what we're calling as inner engineering, to engineer your interiority the way you want.
Okay. Looking at that in a bit more detail, the bit you were talking there about stepping away from the identity piece, which I think is really interesting because brands are all about creating their identity, and yet I love the way that you're saying it's not until we get out of our identity that we can see the bigger opportunities and how to become what we want. How can we help people to understand how to unravel that identity? How do we step away from all the things that you spent time creating?
See, this question is coming from a fundamental that you believe that everything can be fixed intellectually.
Yes.
No, it cannot be. As I said when I was speaking in the morning, the other dimension of intelligence within you. If you… I think today people are beginning to talk about emotional what? Emotional intelligence, not just IQ, EQ and whatever. This is just rudimentary steps, taking at least one small step, but a rudimentary step. This is essentially a very deep-rooted Western malice which has gotten into everybody today across, because all of us are going through Western education. We may be living in India, but our education is completely, unfortunately, English. Because intellect is supreme. This is a European idea. In India, we have not given much significance to intellect because your intellect always functions from a limited data that you have gathered. Your thought process happens only from the limited data that you have. If you function from your thought process, nothing new will ever happen in your life because you're just recycling the old all the time. Maybe you can produce permutations and combinations of that. Here, our focus has always been how to enhance your perception. Don't worry about your thought, whether it looks smart or dumb, that's not the issue. How to enhance the perception. If your ability to perceive life is enhanced, naturally your ability to act in the world is naturally enhanced without any effort.
There was a very simple way that people could start to experience, because you know how people are. People like to experience it once, and once they see it, they believe it, and then they do it. What's the smallest catalyst that we can encourage our peers and our friends in the industry?
We can give you a 12-minute simple process of meditation.
Okay.
It's available on the web, we can give you a CD, it's freely available. Millions of people have practiced this, very simple form. If they do that and if it works, they can do something more serious.
Like 12 minutes.
It's called Isha Kriya. You just go on the net and say Isha Kriya, it'll come up. There's a phone app, you can put it on your phone. Yoga is a technology for well-being.
Very nice.
Okay? Actually, the tagline is, in engineering, technologies for well-being. You don't need to believe it. Why I'm insisting is a technology is, it doesn't matter who you are, whether what gods you believe in or you disbelieve in, which part of the geography you come from. If you learn to use it, it works. That's the beauty of technology. Here, if you learn to use it, it works, and that's the nature of yoga. If you learn to use it, it'll work for you. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what you believe or disbelieve. So these are technologies for well-being. Making use of external technologies to disseminate the same is a natural outcome. It's a very natural thing to do. So, for the first time in the history of humanity, our ability to reach human beings on this planet is like never before. The speed and the scope of it is unimaginable just 25 years ago or even 10 years ago, if you ask me. But people tell me, I don't know if this is factually correct, but people tell me 60% of the inner internet space is covered by pornographic material. I don't know if I'm right on the figure, but people tell me so. I think that's a crime. So, I'm making an effort. Technologies for inner well-being of the human being must dominate the space so that human beings learn how to be well. That the tools for well-being must be in the hands of every human being. The tools for well-being must be in the hands of individual human beings, not in the hands of organizations, gurus, popes, no matter what. I'm saying the tools for your well-being must be in your hands, not in my hands. Unfortunately, you left it in my hands, I'm trying to put it into your hands. So, please give us the digital support
Gladly.
to make that happen.
But I did want to just go back to one of the things, and it touches something that I've been frustrated about for a while, and I know you say an end to frustration, so I'm gonna level this one with you and ask for some advice. This idea that the Western way of doing things is in conflict with a sense of individual, I don't know what you want to call it, enlightenment feels a little bit of a loaded word. But this idea that the Western way of looking at things, of education, of success, and all this kind of stuff, it feels, like you were saying, there's a competition to it, there's a conflict to it. How do we help people that have been indoctrinated? And I grew up in that culture, and I find it very difficult to unravel all of the things that I've learned and I've been taught and all this kind of stuff. How do we help people to get past the fear that is involved in seeing an alternative way of the entire life, because that's what everything until now has been built on? It's overcoming that fear. How do we help people to become past that?
See, the basic issue is, do you want to look good or feel good or be good within yourself?
A lot of the Western world sees them
It's
as the
about
same thing.
looking good. Looking good is more important than what's happening within you. Even if you're a tortured human being within you, you just have to look smart and nice and like that.
Uh-huh.
This has to be taken away from an early childhood. Looking good is not important. What is your experience of life? Is your experience of life great or not? This is what is important. This value change must happen. It's not something that you can change overnight in the world. But those who suffer immensely will change. I see that suffering coming because suffering is getting younger and younger. There was a time only old people used to be worried. Now you see a 12-year-old boy is seriously worried. So when that kind of suffering comes, looking good is not important. When suffering becomes unbearable, people will understand looking good is not important. How I experience my life is important. You hear this talk all over, isn't it, these days? Still the necessary corrections have not been made, but people are beginning to talk. So this is the time technologies for inner well-being are transmitted. The time is right.
Good.